look long term. The great startups take time to build, so you need to see where the world will be in a few years from now and build for that world, not for the world that is today.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode. In this episode, we will talk about how you can start a startup. And to talk about this, we have invited a very special guest. He is the co founder of CodeSphere, and he's also featured in Forbes 30 Under 30. So, a warm welcome to Roman, and tell us about yourself.
Hey, thank you for having me, Huzaifa. I am a co-founder of CodeSphere, and CodeSphere is a cloud provider which aims to simplify how development is being done today. So many times when you start a project, you need to set up certain infrastructure to host this project, and that takes time and requires knowledge and budget. What we do is we try to automate as much of it as possible, thus allowing engineers to focus what really matters, and that's solving the problem of their users.
Yeah, that is very cool. I've seen your website and your platform as well. It is, very intriguing. Like from the editor, you are just provisioning the infrastructure and then it is live. So you don't have to, just get into that detail. So that is very cool.
Thank you.
And can you walk us through your initial journey, like how you come into this tech space and then you started your own product and now it is doing so good?
Well, it was a long journey, and I I grew up with a mindset which was like you need to be born with math brains to become a scientist. And like growing up, I wasn't good at school. I wasn't good at math or anything. I never tried coding until 21 year old. And I didn't really see myself being an engineer or being a tech startup founder, although I did watch movies about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and I aspired to become an entrepreneur one day, but I wanted to be like my mom because she opened an ice cream shop when I was 14, and I thought that maybe one day I will open a restaurant as well. Um, it was only when I was 21, I essentially randomly stumbled upon a presentation about Mars colonization by Elon Musk that something clicked in my head. And after doing a short research on Elon Musk, I found out that he programmed a video game when he was 13, and I was already 21 and never tried coding in my life. And for me, it was low-key offensive to hear that or learn that. And so I decided to give it a try, because if I'm 21 and he did it at 13, I must be able to do at least something.
Yeah.
And so I went to YouTube, searched how to learn programming, and randomly stumbled upon an amazing course which is called CS50. It is a Harvard introductory course to computer science. And I just did this course, then continued learning for another year, and finally landed a job in IT.
Great, great. And when you just this is about when you started coding, like you learned using that course and then you went into the IT industry. Then when you get the idea of CodeSphere and when you get the idea and then you take action on that, like take us through that journey.
So it took a bit of time prior to CodeSphere. Um, I started to work in IT in 2018 in February of that year, and that was a blockchain startup where I was building an analogy of Kickstarter on Ethereum blockchain. That was the first startup that I worked in. I worked there for a little over a year, Then I ventured off and started my own startup called Tao, with a focus on providing drivers of electric vehicles with charging stations owned by residents, thus solving the bottleneck of lack of charging stations. This project survived for 1 year, but eventually we had to shut it off due to lack of funding and the pandemic that started in 2020. And shortly after, probably maybe 4 months after we had to shut it down, I got contacted by a friend of mine, an investor, who introduced me to now my co-founder, Elias. And that's how we met, while being in different countries and just meeting over Google Meet. And we essentially talked about the idea of CodeSphere. So Elias was the one who came up with the initial idea, and then we discussed it. I gave my feedback. I discussed certain concerns that I had, and we kind of continued conversing over the following weeks or months. And eventually, I joined shortly after Alice and Jonas, two of my co-founders, raised the pre-seed round. And then I believe like 3 months after that, we three of us launched the alpha version of CodeSphere in March 2021.
Great, great, great. And then like when you know, launch the initial version, at that time, I think you are like a team of like 3 or 4 people, or like at that time you had like different people, 10 plus team.
When we launched the first version, we had only 3 engineers, us co-founders.
Okay, great. And then like obviously to build an amazing product, you need like a team, right? That understand your vision and that works for the same vision. Everybody is aligned on a, you know, same vision, and then they are all are working hard, because working in a startup is different. Like working with a big enterprise is like, because you have like a lot of work, then you have like a lot of developers, but with startup it is like sometimes it is a bit tough as well. So how did you build that team?
So in the beginning, all engineering was split into 3 parts equally between us co-founders. We had a designer who was working as an outsource member of the team. Also, finance was outsourced, marketing. And then later, after the first launch, we hired 3 students part-time, and we were mentoring them, and they were helping. And that's basically how our team stayed for the first year until we raised the seed round. When we raised the seed round, which was $5.6 million, our team exploded from like 6, 7 people to 30 plus. And we definitely had many issues because of such fast growth. So we did mishire because of this fast growth. We did lack certain processes in the company and structure. So there were lots of things we needed to invent on the way, which weren't prepared for. And yeah, I think the first year after we raised seed round, we were essentially working on fixing those mistakes and building processes.
Yeah. And this is like a very good lesson for all the people, right? Like who are listening to this podcast, that it is not like, you know, I asked you like how you get that dream team and then build that amazing product, but it's not like that. Like for a person who is looking from the side, they are thinking, you know, this guy, they have like a very good team, and then that's why they have built this. So it's not like you like in the start get a very good team, you do like a lot of mistakes, you learn from them, you create processes. So it's an ongoing process. Then you have like a very good solid like guys, and you know, who are working with you from the start, and then how it grows.
Yes, this is very well noted. The same applies to the software itself. The alpha version of the product, though it might have looked somewhat similar in general, yet pretty much all features that were in the original version were revamped, reworked, because the original iteration was full of issues performance-wise and also bugs, of course. And even those versions that we have right now, they're likely not final. So it's a constant process of learning and improving.
Yeah. And like in software, I believe like, you cannot make like a perfect product, right? There are going to be, certain issues and problems with your product, like every now and then, like even like big companies, like, even GitHub, like we all use that, right? So if you go to GitHub's status page, and then you will see that they have reported like 30 issues that they have encountered. Like last month, I was checking, it was 28 issues reported on their GitHub status page, that they have publicly announced that we are facing this issue in this particular service, like maybe in the GitHub Actions or in that service. And then you can, imagine like how many issues they have faced actually in the production environment, like in a month, like it will be more than 100, right? So I have seen a lot of guys, they are like, I am going to make my product even more stable, more stable. I will work on that and then I will release it. And by doing so, they spend like, months and months, and then there are some new changes in the package, or like, there's new things coming in, and then you have to do that as well, because you have to maintain that. So by doing so, they eventually, I would say, they miss the opportunity. You have to, when you think, okay, it's working, it's like good, you have to release it, and then yeah, it's an iterative process, and you just make it better.
Yeah, and also you need to get feedback. Sometimes you might be building something that users don't need. And then if you make it perfect and spend a lot of time, then you basically just waste more time and more money as a business.
Yeah, that is true. And like, when your product was ready and everything, went on track, so then obviously you also get featured in Forbes 30 under 30. So how was that feeling, and what's the story behind that?
Um, that really came out of the blue. So it was 2022, I believe. Yeah, it was 2022, and that was after we raised seed round of funding, and it was 1 year after. Wait, no, it was just the year. It was just a few months after we raised the seed round of funding. We already had our product in beta, um, and yeah, one day just Forbes reached out to me via email, not just to me, but to us co-founders, and they just sent some form to fill out. And I, with me, it was kind of delayed, and they were like, "You need to submit it like this day until 10 p.m." And I was on the train, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have like just a few hours," so that was unnecessarily stressful. But yeah, after that, just submitted the form, forgot about it, and I think a few weeks later, while I was on a trip, on a short trip to Spain, I got an email which was essentially an invite to a Slack community, like Forbes Under 30. And I was like, okay, maybe it's like a community for candidates, like, like general chat. And then I opened it, and I was like thinking, okay, I'll just take a look at who won. And I opened it. I looked at the one of the channels and in that Slack workspace, and there was an article. So I opened the article and I started scrolling. Just like there are like different categories, like sports, technologists, and etc. And at some point I saw us, and I was like, wow, we made it to Forbes 30 under 30. And I immediately copied the link and sent to my co-founders. And I think the first day, none of us really believed in it, but yeah, my mom was really happy to see that. So yeah, it felt surreal.
Yeah, that is true. Like, because obviously, a recognition from, Forbes, like as a kid as well, we all know, what is Forbes. Like either you're living in whatever country, everyone knows about it. So it's like that, it has that kind of impact. And then when you get featured on that, obviously, like it's not about you being happy because your family, because they don't know much about, you raise a seed round, or like you have this amazing feature in your product. Like they might not understand it, your family, your dad. So but if you get featured in these sort of like big, magazine, and then like it's sort of like different, ball game. Everyone, it's like amazing, I would say. I bet you can you will remember this, whole story of being in the train and like the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, and seeing reaction of my family and friends, it's very valuable to me.
Yeah, that is true. And coming back to the how to, start your own startup. So what are the key ingredients for anyone who wants to start a startup? Like what are the things that they need to consider to do it?
Um, Personally, I think you need to be really passionate about the subject. Um, at least I struggle when with things that are like only to, I don't know, build um money or something. I always need to have like a bigger problem to solve, which improves lives of people around the world. And I truly believe that if you are going into this wild journey, you need to be prepared for like 5 to 10 year trip or journey, and it will be really hard and tough, and you will have to make many sacrifices. And I don't think you would be ready for it if you weren't really passionate about the subject.
Yeah, that is very true. And obviously, because with a lot of people, I have seen like, you try one idea, it doesn't work. You try for like 1 year or 2 year, then you try another one, then you try another one. But with some people, they try one and it works. So you don't have to get demotivated that I have tried like five and it didn't work, and the other guy just tried one and it worked. So I believe, you're right. Like when you go down that road, you have to be patient, and it's not like you have to be just patient and you're not working very hard. So it's like mix of both. You have to be very hungry, you're working a lot, plus on the same time you are not, you have to be patient in a way that if you do not get like, big fundings or you do not see the result, you are patient, you're like, okay, it will happen eventually. So it's like yeah, and I would say it's like a tough journey, and plus it involves a lot of passion.
Yeah, honestly, like those who make it big from the first try, I haven't met them personally, and those who you hear about on the internet, they usually also have some other startups that you just don't know about. Even like Mark Zuckerberg, like Facebook wasn't his first project, so yeah.
Plus like I believe like for someone who just made one product and it eventually blew up, it can be a case if that guy was in the industry for like so many years. He was in the software industry maybe for like 10, 20 years, and he was VP of product, and he actually see the whole process and everything. He has the context as well. So he, when that person started his own product, he has the funding as well because he has those contacts. So in that case, it can be true, but still very hard to believe. But for someone, like us, like, young guys, so yeah, it's very difficult, just start one and thinking about like this will, this will be the final product. So you just have to keep working on that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, the next thing is like you have a particular idea in your mind, right? And then like how to validate that this is the right idea and there is a market need for that particular product that I am going to create. Because obviously you are going to invest your time, you're going to invest your money, so you have to validate that. And I believe that it is the most important part. Like if you do not validate your idea and just directly go into that, it is like not advisable as well.
So what you need to do is simple, though executing it is hard. You need to talk to as many people as you can, and you also need to be very selective in who you talk to, because you can get very biased opinion if you talk to people of the same group or demographic or geography. So you need to be mindful of that. You usually don't even need to have anything, just the concept that is you can explain or maybe show some mockups, 3D renders, whatever, depending on the application. And get feedback. Always get feedback. This is the, let's say, this is the least expensive thing you can do when you're starting a company, because starting with a product, building something, investing your time, hiring other people, without feedback, you will just build something that nobody wants. So get feedback early on without anything.
And like how to find guys, to ask the feedback from LinkedIn, or approaching similar guys like who have actually built a product like that, or what's your take on that?
I think that those are valid sources. Of course, LinkedIn, you can basically find anyone on LinkedIn. Um, then, of course, depends on what is your business idea, what is your target audience.
Yeah.
And based on that, you will select like which companies to go to. Like, are these enterprises, are these smaller businesses, or are these, like, let's say, private developers or private users? So you always need to understand like who you're serving, who is your customer, and then also talk to other entrepreneurs or those who did a similar journey, who are further than you in the process. They will have the most actionable advice for you, and also get a mentor as early as you can.
Yeah, that is also very important. Like you have a mentor, that the person who has like actually seen a lot more the whole tech industry, and who has gone through a lot, and then they can guide you, they can channelize you to okay, put your effort in that direction. And that is very important. And the next important point that I want to discuss is like, whenever we talk about startups and all of that, so the first thing, like, everybody think is like, after the idea is how to get the funding, because obviously all the startup, they don't have like a lot of cash to so how to get that funding, what's the process like? And tell us about that, like, because a lot of people, because these startup ideas are initiated by tech guys, right? And tech guys are not very, they do not have like a lot of friends, and they're not very, socializing. They're not very good in that, most of them. So then, like, getting the funding and all that, it requires, your social skill and all that. So how these guys can approach this funding thing?
Yeah, that sounds relatable. I'm also an engineer, and I'm also leaning more on the introvert side. Um, so you need to network with people, and you need to do it in advance to the actual funding. You never want to approach people when you need money. You need to approach people well before and build meaningful relationship with them. Um, Sometimes it's better to start with let's say entrepreneurs. You get familiar with someone, maybe your friend is building something interesting. Those friends, you can get them if you attend meetups or conferences. Usually there are meetups in like in big cities, or even smaller cities have local meetups for specific topics, like, let's say, JavaScript or React, um, etc. And yeah, just talk to them, ask them to introduce you, to make an introduction, because investors, they, let's say, a lot of people try to approach them, and it's really hard to identify who to trust. But if somebody who you already worked with introduces a person to you, it's kind of like, it helps get in touch with this person without having to storm through cold email, because emails are not, it's like, not everyone opens every email. So yeah, that's basically it. Just network in advance. Um, I know it's not comfortable for people who are more introverted, but that's the way it is.
That is very true. So anyone who is watching and you have a plan in the future, the advice would be to, start networking from now, and then eventually, like after like 1 or 2 year, 3 years, when you have the product and everything, then you have like a lot of good connections as well, so you don't have to worry about that. So yeah, that is good advice. And when you are building a product, so how to set the initial target audience and define some constraints, because you know in the startup you get like overwhelmed. You think, okay, I can add this, the other person is saying, we can also add this feature, so it sometimes get very confusing. Like, you can add, obviously, in every product you have like a lot of things that you can add. If you start thinking about this aspect, right, like you don't think about the product stability, growth, anything, just think about like what we can add to deliver more value. There will be hundreds of things that you can add, so how to restrict, but adding them also, it can cause a problem as well, that your product was initially perceived as this thing, and then you add too many things and user sort of get confused. So how you guys approach that in your startup as well, that you guys stick to a certain agenda, or like certain, you had like certain boundaries, so how did that go?
So first of all, we made many mistakes on that front. In the beginning, it was rather like in the very beginning, it was rather simple because there was just nothing, and we were like, okay, what are like things that will be required anyways, regardless which path we will go. So that was that. Then we had a period, let's say, from alpha launch to maybe over the seed round already, when we were essentially adding features, and we did add features that we had to kill later on. So we did make mistakes. And as soon as we had capital, we hired product managers that started doing product research, user interviews, and tried to learn as much as possible. We created lists of features and tried to prioritize them based on user feedback, both quantitative and qualitative. We tried to build mockups using Figma, which are interactive templates, and we gave them to users. They used them, gave feedback, and we did some iterations on that. And yeah, that's essentially what we started doing. We still weren't perfect. We made mistakes regardless, even with feedback. Yeah, now since we already have real users, real customers, now we try to be data-driven and build what our customers need, like what are their main pain points. And why I say try, because sometimes we just don't have enough data, so there are still certain assumptions that we have to make till this day.
And when you talk about feedback, so one way is, just like having a small, quick call, or like through email. But what other, techniques that you guys have applied? Like, is there any integration in the platform, or any pop-ups or something like that to gather feedback?
We don't have integrations in the product itself. There is a link to the feedback page where you can go. You can also vote for features, which features you want to see in the product. And then we also do send emails asking to give feedback on our product. It's essentially a pretty simple survey. There's a great article about how Superhuman, a startup, developed a product market fit validation engine. And we are using a survey from there, which is essentially, there are few fields. One is a user needs to answer whether they will be very disappointed if the product would disappear, or they would be just disappointed, or there would be no change. So one of the three. And then there are a few fields that say what is like, what is the main pain point, or what would you like to see in the product, things like that. And so we do segment our user base and send those emails to gather feedback. And based on that data, we build our roadmap and roll out features.
Yeah, that is an interesting strategy that you have just told. And the next thing is that, like, all the startups, they have like limited budget. so how they plan the marketing. Obviously they on the one side we have like paid advertisement, and then we have like Google ads, and then on the other side there is like the concept of organic, doing the SEO and link building and all that. So obviously then doing all of that, it requires a lot of cost as well. So and then like we also have this influencer marketing, like in some product it is very good that you go down that road as well. So but like how you guys decided like how to spend that much on advertisement, and like how did that went?
So we started experimenting with ads very early into the journey, even before the first release, first alpha release. And it was, I think, Google ads from the get-go, then later Twitter, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube. So we tried many, many different things. We tried blog articles on our platform, on Medium, on Ghost. We tried influencer marketing. We tried posting videos on YouTube. We tried podcasts, running our own podcast in-house. So Spotify. So we tried many different mediums, and it was always, it's like a very long A/B testing. We're always trying out something new, removing what doesn't work and doubling down on what works. And yeah, it's pretty much the same um, now. It's like we are doing a lot of A/B testing. Yeah.
I think you guys have like done almost everything. All the you have mentioned like a lot of things. So yeah, that is good that you guys are trying like almost all the mediums and seeing what works, and doubling down on that. That's like a good technique. So yeah, that is good. So let's talk about, when your product, start getting more user base, and then there's like more traffic on your platform. So is there any hiccups like in terms of like scaling, and then how to handle that aspect? Obviously, because the one thing is that you have your product ready, then you get the funding, then obviously all of the sudden you started, advertisement and everything, up a notch the whole budget and everything, and then you have like a lot of users. So how to make sure that at that time your product is going smooth?
Um, so an important aspect is, of course, the design. We have very strict processes around design of our software. We have team members coming from Google, and Google is quite famous for its engineering processes. So we inherit many policies and practices from there. We have guides for pretty much everything, like how to write code, how to test code, how to design, how to write design documents, how to review code as well. And we try to invest as much as possible in design phase so that we don't have issues later on, whether just technical limitations or, let's say, performance bottlenecks. So that's one major area where we invest. The second one is, of course, testing. Then we do have a set of load tests that we run to identify what is the maximum load. We always look for bottlenecks. Let's say like we have microservice architecture, and it might be that like, let's say there's like a certain service that just gets way more traffic than others. So we think about, okay, do we just scale it horizontally, or do we need to adjust the code or add some caching somewhere? So these are regular things we do. Um, I would say in advance, but not too well in advance.
Yeah. Okay. And then you mentioned like load testing. So can you tell, what was the tool that you guys use for load testing?
I think it was K6. I think it's by Grafana
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
It's it's a really good tool. I think it's my favorite from all that I use. It has a cloud version, but you can also run it locally, and it has really good very simple integration to Grafana as well. Um, you can write it in JavaScript or TypeScript at least, maybe in other languages as well. So yeah, highly recommend it.
It's like an amazing tool. Like I just wanted to know because in the load testing, I have created like a whole video series as well using K6 and Grafana and everything. And now like last month they have made me their advocate as well, a K6 and Grafana team. So I was checking out
Mhm.
like what tool that you guys use, because I have also tried like a lot of them. And then it was like I remember like 1 year ago a client told me, they had this requirement that they're saying that we need to load test our system. So I was like, okay. So I haven't like done that previously. So I tried explored like a lot of tools, and then using K6, like I have like gone into very detail, like how to mimic all of the Grafana, everything locally with Docker, then automatic test case generation. It has like so many things. And then also testing like WebSockets as well and Redis, like they have like a lot of features. So from there, like yeah, they eventually contacted me, and then I also became their advocate. But yeah, it's like a great tool.
This is awesome. Yeah, WebSockets was uh, the main reason why we selected K6 over other tools, because they had limited support for WebSockets.
Yeah, that is true, because from WebSockets, there's like a very quick case study I will share here in this video, that like recently in our Respond.io, it's like a messaging platform. So they have, it's like omni channel, like all the Facebook Messenger, all these platform is integrated with Respond. And then in Respond you have these agents, and you are replying to all the customers. So they handle like Respond handle like around uh 10 million plus messages, so it's like every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So they have like terabytes of data every month. So it's like a huge volume of data. So then all the other services we have, like CloudFormation and Terraform, everything is auto scaling, everything is enabled. But for the specifically for the messaging service, we had like only one server, one big giant server. And then they are
Mhm.
confused that like okay, how do we scale it? It was like using Laravel. All the other services are obviously converted into Node, but that part was still in the legacy. So then we plan on just creating multiple instances, and then like internally all the instances will talk to each other using Redis. And then because
Mhm.
when you have multiple socket servers, it can be a case like one person is attached to socket 1, the other one is attached to socket 3. So how they can communicate with each other, because usually the socket server emit like one, there's like one socket server, that server gets the call and that server will emit it. So using like we implemented like the whole thing using Redis adapter, and then like uh to load test it, like the new implementation, then we use K6, and like we put like a lot of load, and it like really helped us to understand that this new implementation is actually good. So it's like a very crucial aspect, like
Mhm.
a lot of people doesn't know about it. So yeah, I would say just check that out, like K6, like a good tool.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to add it to your CI as well.
Yeah, that is true. And then like in the startup, like one of a very crucial aspect is that like customer retention, like because you are running ads, you are doing a lot of things. So a lot of people are coming to your platform, but investors are also very keen towards this retention metric as well, that it can be a case they come to your platform like after 2 or 3 hours they are gone, and then they are not coming back. So obviously all the tech startups, they have like different integration checking the retention rate and everything. So how to make sure that the platform has good retention rate, and like you guys are like how to make sure that with every passing day your retention rate is getting better.
Um, so for private users, I don't know what our retention is. I know that our retention is very high for customers, like companies, enterprises. We haven't lost a single one so far, and I think it's mainly because we are driven by the feedback we receive from them. We treat it really seriously, and we consider every feature that our customers need, and our delivery times are also pretty small. So like whenever we get a request, a feature request, usually it takes, let's say, 2 months, like max, to deliver it to production. And I think that customers appreciate that speed, because in big companies, the timelines are way longer.
Yeah, because they have a lot of plan already planned. They are like, okay, we will plan this, and then they have like a lot of SOPs. So for them to ship something, based on feedback, it takes a lot of time. And talking about like, your competition. So do you guys have any competitors in that particular space?
Of course, we do have many companies that we all have an overlap with, starting with more traditional cloud providers like AWS, Google Cloud, DigitalOcean, and some more, let's say there's like somewhere in the middle, there's Heroku, which started, I believe, in like 2010-ish. But I think they haven't really made any drastic changes to their platform since then. So there are now another generation of other platforms. Let's say Replit, Vercel are some of the bigger players on the market. However, like none of us really do exactly the same. Like every platform has its own flavor. Let's For Vercel, they focus on the server-side rendering with Next.js, and for us, we focus more on essentially replacing Kubernetes with a user-friendly interface. So essentially allowing you to run a microservice architecture through UI without having to touch Kubernetes ever.
Yeah.
And also developing right there in the cloud.
Yeah. And then there's also a platform like Winglang. Have you heard about that? It's also like, from code you can provision the infrastructure. It's like bit different, but I would say like it's sort of like in the same category, that in that product as well, like from the code you can write the code for the infrastructure, and then you can write your own logic as well, like what you are doing, right? So you can write your Lambda function, and then you define the Lambda function, then you are setting up something in Redis maybe, then automatically it will, provision, it will write the Terraform code, or you want like CloudFormation, so it will do that. So yeah, I've seen like a lot of these sort of tools, but like, yeah, every tool has like something like, different. So I haven't seen anything like, I have seen your product. It's not like I haven't seen like, very similar, like 90 to 80% similar product. Like, so all of them are like, yeah, bit different, bit different.
Yeah, it's a very fast growing market right now. And I like the tendency towards simplification, because as we like as humanity, as we, let's say, grow, the tools we use become more sophisticated and more complex over time, just because of, let's say, all like if you cater for a big audience, you have to build something flexible. Something that is very flexible becomes overly complex. And if everything is becoming complex, we as humans, we are not becoming significantly smarter. Like we still have the same brain we had like 200,000 years ago. And so we need to simplify those tools in order to continue using them. Otherwise, the learning curve will become way too steep for people to even enter the field.
Yeah, that is true. Because like, yeah, there are like a lot of things going on. Like, and then like talking about, your future plan, like, what is the future plan of CodeSphere? Like, what are the, big things that you guys have decided, or even the small things that in the roadmap that you have decided, like moving forward, like we will work on these things, maybe after like 4 or 5 years. So I would, love to know about that.
So we're still okay, not pretty, but we're still not where we want to be. We still haven't implemented our vision, which is to have full development pipeline in the cloud, so that you don't have to ever leave this single tab of a browser. You can do everything from there. You can build an entire application from scratch with microservices, databases, everything you would need, domains, scaling. And even if you have a case which utilizes machine learning models, you would also have it in the same place, so you don't have to leave it. And that's what we want to build. We want to build this all-in professional development platform.
Yeah, it's like I would pray, you guys, eventually reach that goal, because if you have like everything in one place, like, the way you are explaining it, like, then it's like, a lot of hassle right now, because you have like AWS. If you go to any cloud platforms, like, it requires, you have to do some certification to understand that, to fully, set up the infrastructure, everything. Then even like the small things like connecting domain, setting up the database, and then the VPC and that stuff. Like, obviously, if you can do all of that from just like one place, you're also like writing your logic, and then like you're handling all of these aspects from one place. Yeah, I would say, if you guys are able to do it, like, then I don't think there is any point like people not adopting it. Like, then obviously everyone, every tech company would say, okay, yeah, that's a good, like, unified solution.
Thank you, Huzaifa. Yeah, we originally got inspiration from Google, because at Google there is a really cool proprietary stack of software used for code reviews and version control and search, and it is not available to anyone outside of Google, but it's really well built and integrated, and it is located in the cloud. So that's where the original inspiration came from. And yeah, we just want to make this great experience available to everyone.
Yeah, that is cool. And how do you guys keep your team motivated? Because in startup, like, you have a lot of up and downs. Sometimes you guys are like very happy. You have like, raise another round, and sometimes, things are not going right. Like, there are like too many errors and problems. Customer are reporting that. So obviously, how, what things that you guys do to, like, make sure the whole team is motivated, and you working on the same vision.
One thing which is perhaps the paramount of that is we do explain the why behind decisions that we make. If we make a decision on a strategy, on a company strategy, we do have events like a fireside chat every month where we do elaborate on the decision, explain why we're doing that, and then we'll also give the why behind smaller things like individual tasks. So oftentimes in companies, it might be that you get a ticket with a particular task assigned to you, and you see that you need to do something, but you don't understand why. What is the how does it contribute to the bigger picture? And that's what we try to eliminate. We try to have the why explained on all levels so that people see their contribution. And if we get some user feedback, we'll also share it with the team, so that they can be proud of the work that they're doing.
Yeah, that's a good strategy, that, like, everyone knows that their work is being valued. Like, it's not like they're working on something and it doesn't contribute anything, that they know, okay, there's a reason why I am working on this particular feature. And then obviously sharing them the feedback. And obviously sometimes, in big companies, the feedback is just taken by the product team, and then they design something, and then they tell the dev, you have to do this. So just telling them everything and the why behind everything you guys are doing, it's like a good strategy to keep them motivated and keep them, so it's good for them as well, to they know that why they are doing this XYZ thing. So yeah, that's good. And in the end, what's your final advice for, all other young entrepreneurs? So yeah, I would like to know about it.
So if you are planning to become an entrepreneur, be mindful that it will be a very hard and long journey. But if you're still on board, then there are many important problems to be addressed in this world. Don't jump on hype bandwagons. Look long term. The great startups take time to build. So you need to see where the world will be in a few years from now and build for that world, not for the world that is today.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. And yeah, that brings us to end of another exciting episode. And thank you so much, Roman, for joining us and sharing all these valuable insights and your life journey as well, like how you guys did it. And yeah, that was very insightful and very inspiration as well.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
So yeah, for everyone who is listening, just keep on watching the videos and work on your ideas. Like if you have an idea, you should have the courage. You should, start working on your idea, and don't worry about failing. If you fail once, just try second time, third time, because this journey is a bit tough. But you have to stay motivated. So until next time, have a nice day and bye bye.